We call it secret knowledge because the mind does not know how to formulate a question that would give it insight while it is holding an obstruction. And if you can see with fullness that you are innocent, then that drastically changes things. And the language comes to you endless ways, but it's like a natural moving of the heart where it's like everything is on the path given to you at the right time. And so what's interesting about the whole thing is it reminds me of when it is said to go out and bring nothing with you. Go out and bring nothing. And because you're emptied of your own ideas, can you follow your heart and see that the earth is a womb. It is a womb. And it knows us so intelligently. It knows everything. It knows everything. So intelligently and moving back and forth, constantly reminding you that you're innocent. The path that I found myself taking when I got here was I read A Course in Miracles. What is intelligence if you do not absorb it? I can call it intelligent, but then who would know if I did not? Something of intelligence, all-knowing, interacts with us. And that is the evidence where the mind moves beyond believing, because it now knows. And with that, the entire nervous system lays placid in that idea. A mind that is whole knows of its wholeness. Heaven is here now. You just need to walk through the door. I want you to think about that for a minute. The mind only needs to become whole in a thought, in an idea. And in that moment, you will see how misunderstood you always were about the word completeness. Now that you understand completeness. Now that you understand completeness. Sincerity is an incredible word. It should be reflected upon to gather it into an awareness that can be applied. It's always at the top of the head. And you could, and it moves with your inner emotions. The sincerity, the fullness. It radiates outward because limits are no longer believed. Natural radiating outward. So you get this, it's almost like the lack of sincerity in the asking prevents one from understanding wholeness. And simple enough, sincerity means to be whole. The approach is not straight, it is not concentrated, the will is not single focused. So if you happen to not be loyal to the moment, then you're not loyal to relating. To relate is active, it's always in the moment, it's always the whole of what you're presenting yourself as. Is everything forgiven? Or are some things unforgivable? You realize as you hold those are the things that you will not be able to see your freedom while you're holding that. When you give it fully, you will see that you are innocent. Now, to concentrate the will is very easy once the obstruction is removed. Forgiveness will feel very unnatural while holding certain ideas. But once the information is correct, and you see the sameness in what things truly are, how they truly are, you realize there's no place to hold it. And forgiveness becomes this sane, natural way of thinking, not difficult at all. The dream is the condition that your beliefs have put you in. They're the boundaries, they're the limits. They are what creates your perception of what is real to you, what is valuable to you, what sustains you, and highly distorted that becomes if you do not know who you are. You can see yourself as limited or limitless. It can only be one of the two. Limited or limitless. And it's not whether you are or aren't. What is already is. It's whether you're aware of it that makes the nervous system either extremely calm or quite agitated and nervous. So it's the world of a difference in how things are seen. Are you either limited? What does deep down tell you? Are you either limited or limitless? The thing about synchronicity is, if you're seeing it, it means the thinking is in line with what is true and what is natural, because what can cross that gap between the physical and the spiritual, the way one thinks? When you recognize that everything is within, then you have recognized your power. In the calm sense you now have with seeing illusions. When you know yourself, something is understood, and so it's final. So if your five senses happen to tell you something differently, you'd actually know immediately, well, it's either false or true, because you know yourself. And that's the power of knowing the self, is you can see right through illusion. You know what is true, what is false about you, then you know what is true and what is false as you see. It's the fear that I underestimated. It does not go away. It just doesn't just part the sea and let the sense come in. It's very defensive. It's very defensive. And so that needs to be eroded carefully. You know, the mind is going to try to avoid stress at all costs, even unconsciously. And so if you're going to give it new information that's going to seem to rock the foundation of which it built its original, it is not going to be interested to just want to sit there and look at, examine, or even... There's a reason A Course in Miracles works wonders, is because whenever something is believed, It is never comfortable receiving the confrontation. But the way A Course in Miracles approaches is not by confronting anything. It's not by trying to get you to believe anything. It presents sense in such a complete way. There's no room for any of that error that you thought was once true. There's just no room for it. Your nervous system doesn't even react to it at all. And in that, you see everybody and yourself quite differently. Even all their behaviors, you see how the real source and what it really is, instead of being so caught up on calling it bad, guilty, those things that guarantee that there's always separation. And that's why A Course in Miracles is a wonderful piece of material. I've never read anything that had the intelligence that the material delivers it and how it delivers it. It is beyond human intelligence. It is of a higher intelligence, and that I am certain of. The mind that doesn't contract has nothing to recognize pain or pleasure. And in the unlimited, the invulnerability of being unaffected by anything outside of you is the entirety of inside. Finally, the mind understands. There's nothing to contract about, not a single thought, nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. The paradise, the abundance, the understanding gets you to see the foreverness. And it's a deep satisfaction, deep joy. As nothing needs to be contracted about it. Everything seems to be working for you. That seems to knows. And that is such a deep relaxation of a joy. Finally, there's not a burden. Pure enjoyment. Joy. But when everything is pulled into the present and all of you is bundled here and just not, what that means is not evaluating any of your impulses off of past knowing of anything, just here, then that is when you get to enjoy things. It's realizing that the ego mind is the one that evaluates that. It has to, so it can compare which one was better. Am I growing? Am I decaying? Where am I headed? All these things it wants to know, insatiable for all this knowledge. And it's always for the purpose. Its root, it divides in order to come up with this analysis. So it's divisionary. But the whole mind brings everything into the present and realizes that everything that is here is what is everything. And that is that's like coming to life. It's like having life live you. It's a constant refreshing. It's a very low tension anywhere, very low tension, very calm, and you're very perceptive. Because of that calmness, you're very perceptive. Being here in the now isn't something you can necessarily do unless you gather yourself. All these anchor points of interests, of concerns, of where you are, where you were, where you are, where you're going, past, present, future. The mind can't be here now if it's got anchor points. But if you put forgiveness across everything, and you spread it across everything, then the past and the present and the future become the same. There's no difference. There's no way to anchor anything anywhere. There's no concern. That's what it means to be in the now. Nobody does anything. If you do anything successful, it's because you've allowed it to be done. When you allow things to be done, the moment of allowing, immediately is the ridding of interference. And what is always there is there. And now realized, become real to you. Real in your eyes. You're so complete that you realize now is all you will ever have. And you truly get to enjoy it without being diluted with ideas and concerns of the past and where you're going to go into the future. There's a loveliness in the presence when your mind is complete. And that forgiveness. Allowing means you have put down your ideas. You no longer revolve your impulsivities around how you evaluate their worth. To you. You start with something extremely simple, something perfect, so simple, and then distort that, and that's where you're going to get the prismatic effect of tremendous detail and diversity, everything affected and everything affecting everything. You know, that one. As soon as a distortion enters, that's what happens. It is total loss, awareness of wholeness. And then let's start from a place where things actually make sense. That there is something called innocence. It would not that come first anyways, before guilt even had anything to grapple into? That's the reality you must live in because you've chosen to value it. But it was only a mistake. First, there's a way you can get confused in order to get to that point, which is all beautiful because you're allowed to explore. You're allowed to distort the reality of yourself. You are innocent. You're allowed to distort that. And you're going to see the consequence of that. You are innocent. And you are allowed to distort that. And nobody's going to stop you from holding that in your mind as a reality. Nobody. It's not really secret. It is a distortion to not know how to look straight. And if everything you see, even the ones you claim to be guilty, the ones you claim to be bad, how could you ever close that gap between you two while thinking you were different? How I move and what pulls me, what places me, what provides me with all my meaning. Yet all my intentions, all my planning, those things are entirely known by reality. Reality is so intelligent that it knows that I know that it knows that I know it's intelligent. And it's the way it interacts is exactly according to the distortions that we have in our intentions. And we want to put these efforts out there and for reasons and purposes that are all distorted because we're confused about who we are. The identifications cause us to start meandering. But the thing with humans is we see ourselves as limited. And that limited vantage came about because when something false enters the picture of a mind, when a mind was laying perfectly peaceful with all sense making sense, everything makes perfect sense. Everything acknowledged, everything was a whole. As soon as something false enters, it puts a fracture in there and everything still needs to make sense, but it cannot make sense. And so some dividing and separating and making things smaller in different segments needs to occur in order to get pockets of sense. And then we isolate our mind inside those and favor those as the reality. And that is the ego mind, and the mind that thinks it is separated, and that is how you would think if you actually were separated. But it is a false. It is false. You are not separated. It is the idea of guilt that got into your mind that fractured everything, that caused the perception of separation. If you could remove that belief, your mind will be healed. You will see oneness. You will be joined in oneness. You will see everybody. You would give them the mercy that you would always want to have. There would be harmony, and natural harmony, and abundance. Aligned with peace The predicament is this. A mind cannot see the whole of its holdings while it has decided to value separation. You can't see the whole while the mind is already split. And there is in its split, it's facing that direction because it is unconscious of what it's actually facing. It does not realize the matrix of thought, of processing and thoughts will lead it down a path where its entire perception is going to shift. The linchpin is the guiltiness to remove that belief. How if you believe in guiltiness, it also means you believe to judge. In judgment, there's value. And then to believe in judgment means means you think you're different. You actually do not understand anymore. You think you're different. And then because you're different, you'll feel a need to protect yourself from what you do not know. So there's belief in defense. And then now there's belief in defense means you already believe that there's such thing as attack. So you've let these things into your mind as a reality. And the piece that was always there, that took up the whole residence, is no longer, because an idea that's opposing is there. And the nervous system revolves around it because it is not aware yet of what it's revolving around. Learning, all the information is within each of us. We don't need a religion to tell us what's true. It's all there. Go inward and rest, and the calmness will tell you what is true. You already have that ability in you. But when someone tells you that you're guilty, it really shuts that off and mutes that out. It makes it so faint because the other voice is so loud. You do not realize what religion has done to the people by telling them that they are guilty. Here's a way in which I found to enter cosmic intelligence. It just seems to be a doorway, just in and out, in and out. And what it is, there's an internal resting, this agitation of impulsivity that, this interest, it's interest. There's a resting of that. There's no more responding, it's just rest. And in that moment, you can see the reflection of yourself. You can see, you're aware that you're aware of yourself. As you're like looking at yourself. It's like a spotless mirror. It's a perfect mirror. It's like perfect communication of mirror. And you being everything, being all of everything, means there is nothing outside of you, which means you know yourself completely, so therefore everything is known. It's just wherever you want to know. It's just, and I guess I don't know the words to, but it's that resting, it's that willingness to rest, it's that willingness just to forget everything that I know. It's just as soon as because I believe, first I'm innocent, I believe I'm innocent. That was a problem before, I didn't know that. You must believe you're innocent. So you're fully willing and able to receive. You have to receive. You won't be able to receive all the abundance if you don't feel like you wouldn't really deeply hold it and rest it with it. You wouldn't actually be able to get it. You know what I'm saying? When we correct these things, we see this calmness. We see who we are and the beauty that we had to offer everyone just by recognizing and being accountable for what we are holding and wishing. And to do something different would be to only be unconscious of how the pain that you feel is a deep wound within yourself. But without knowing that, you wouldn't be able to hold your entire self again and be back into wholeness. And that's why forgiveness is needed. It is needed while you are unconscious, but when you are conscious, you realize nobody ever did anything at all. Their innocence never changed. They're who they were. The body of thought. You must experience that you are spirit. You are not tied to form. But if you too are tied to form, then what one does to another would truly look like battle. Defense is not needed. Defense is actually a wall put up so that you cannot unlearn what you've learned, and so that peace still is a mystery to you. If you think you're a fish, you're going to need to get in that water, and your reactions will be just as so. And the thing is, in order to have substance, you need to have some substance, something meaningful that justifies its existence. And so spirit is the substance, and the ideas that spirit coalesces around becomes the form. It's how those ideas, the spirit is the focus, it's the placement of where you are, it's the presence, it's where the presence is. And with the ability to see true and false so immediately and so quickly, such a benefit. And it comes from never deviating from the knowing of who you are. No matter what. When you realize who you are, you realize the whole, in that judgment thing that is so frequently believed to be useful, will dissolve right in front of you as you see its worthlessness. Its worthlessness. Being full means to be immersed. And what that means is a realization that the moment there is a full accountability, a full awareness of where the energy is pointed, where all of it is pointed. But when it's diluted and focused on many things other than the idea of being fully immersed into the idea of peace, which means to be fully immersed in the idea of peace means to be fully immersed in being at peace. It's the moment of being accountable for. And so when that happens, there's a lot of life. It's like the moment is shifting according to you holding peace. And there's a protection around you. And that is why all this beauty exists, because peace is eternal in its way, where all other meanings have decay inherent in them. Peace is the victor. Vanity is like the distraction. Just before you could have relaxed into. You're certain. Love. Your certain love. Given. Who am I? To be given this. You are my son. Just is. A beauty so grand.